Hello, welcome to the Slippery Waffles first ever reaction. Today's reaction is going to be to Survival Men vs Women, aka The Island with Bear Grylls. This video was a suggestion by Gabrielle, so thank you very much. Let's get to it. Here I am. Where should I put I'll put myself here.
Two uninhabited Pacific islands. One will be inhabited by 14 British men, while a separate island will be home to 14 British women. Will it be brute power or mental strength that wins the day?
Try and...
What?
1, 2, 3, go!
Get in there, boys! Woo!
Actually wrapping up a dinosaur.
We just caught a prehistoric animal.
A
A
crocodile.
woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. I think evidence begs to differ on that one. Sure, it's one thing to say that in a nice air-conditioned office, but I don't think I have ever heard a feminist point out the inconvenient truth that men almost exclusively work all the dangerous and important jobs that keep society running.
Do they?
I can survive without a New York Times journalist, but I don't think I can survive without indoor plumbing, electricity, or a roof.
Well,
I find it curious, though, that
in
feminists
them.
love to proclaim how independent they are from men on their computers and cell phones that were invented by men. Which brings up the question of equality. That was a topic of discussion in the Jubilee MRA video I covered recently, and I avoided it so I could talk about it in this video. Are men and women equal? The answer to that is no. The reason for that is that men and women are two different things that you can't compare one-to-one on their actual value to society. Equal is the wrong word. The correct word is necessary. Food and water are not equal, but they are both necessary. Each serves its own role. The same is true for men and women. There are things that women are naturally better at, and there are things that men are naturally better at. When it comes to raising children, men are far better at setting boundaries. Women are better at emotional development. Taught to kids without fathers, they are often all over the place and can't contain their behaviors. Taught to kids without mothers, they are often emotionally dead. What we have seen with feminism, though, is an overpromotion of women, followed by a complete lack of respect for what men contribute. And well, I think this show is the perfect example of why feminists cannot survive in their fantasy world without men. For those of you who haven't heard, this is the wonderful experiment in gender equality called The Island with survival expert Bear.
I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be about the island for a second. I thought it was just going to be a whole, feminism is bad, Let's just get back to it.
14 average men versus 14 average women on 2 different Pacific islands for 6 weeks.
That is a smart show, by the way. Shimmy, whoever came that up. There is people who will disagree that with feminism, but I don't really care, bro.
Both groups have their clothes, 2 water canisters, and some other basic supplies like 3 machetes, 8 fishing hooks, and a first aid kit. They also had 2 days of survival training and were not supposed to do any other practice.
Well.
So who will be the superior survival team? The men or the women?
Do the men get Bear Grylls?
Both teams had it rough, but my experience watching the show was, yeah, men had it difficult, but they worked hard and pulled through. The women, however, was just a never-ending story of misery with one bad thing happening after another.
Oh, no.
They were clearly not able to survive without men, much to the anger of feminists who complained about this season. Let's get into the fun, but first, if you like the content you see on this channel, then consider making a donation. Your support is the best way to keep independent.
Yeah, guys, subscribe to Think Before Sleeping. Oh, Think Before You Sleep. Just gonna like that video. Not liking that video. Come back and like it on my main account.
Independent content creators, independent from big tech, so your support is highly appreciated. Links to my PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar pages can all be found in the description. And also, don't forget to support me on Alt Tech. You can find the links to my Parler page and my BitChute channel in the description as well. Alright, So the first challenge of the island is to find a beach to
That's
set
all
up
got a
camp.
mind of its own.
It's a lot safer to be on a beach where you
like,
can see everything than it is to be in a forest full of snakes and crocodiles. Let's see how the men handle this challenge.
It's 4 p.m. With only 2 hours of daylight remaining, the men's priority has to be finding a safe place to shelter for the night. Paul thinks the group's best option is a beach.
I personally want to just plough on and make it. I mean, it's going to get darker in here quicker than it is on
Yeah.
the beach.
Paul pushes
that is
on,
true.
despite the group's growing
I mean,
descent.
that's basic knowledge.
I found the sea. Ah,
We found the sea.
ah.
So that was quick. A few hours of intense stress, everyone pushed through, and they all made it on the first day. As for the women, their story is a little bit more complicated and requires more than a single clip to discuss. Their first mistake was that they decided to split up.
So
Why?
one group's going to
Why?
go look, and one group's going to stay here.
Who's in the go group?
Me.
Why are they splitting up?
You got
That-
your whistles.
Yeah.
That
We're
never
whistling.
works in any movie.
I can tell that these women
Except
watched
for
way
Scooby-Doo,
too much
actually.
Scooby-Doo when they were
Yeah.
kids. You never want to split up when you are in a dangerous situation.
No.
Even Bear Grylls says it's a bad idea.
Splitting up your group is a high-risk strategy.
The show says
Oh, yeah.
they split up to protect a fire they
Bear
made the
Grylls-
previous night. By the
Bear
way,
Grylls- If Bear Grylls says it's bad, it's bad. And he drinks his own piss.
we're on day 2, and the women only ended up walking a few hundred feet away from their drop points. Also, you can take
that
the
the
fire
island?
with you. Not to mention,
That's
you
not
would
the
either
island,
have to
that's the
move
sea,
the
innit?
fire or make
Yeah,
a
that's
new
the
one
sea.
anyway when you
Island's
found a new
stupid.
camp. Did they think about this for more than 10 seconds? However, I will be fair and point out that some of the women said this was a stupid idea.
Hold on a minute. You think that you can walk right round this island?
We
in the
don't
water?
know anything.
I think this decision has been made a little too quickly.
But they split
Oh,
up anyway.
There they
On
go.
this first trip, they find a beach that isn't that great, and they come back. So
That isn't a beach. That's a cliff. That's a cliff, but not as. It's rocks, just rocks.
that was all well and good, but now with that success, they are a little bit more confident about their bad decision, and they split up again.
Oh.
One of their
no.
previous dissenters, Jamie, joins them this time.
More desperate than ever to get out of the jungle, the women are sending out another search party to find a beach camp. 7 women volunteer to join Fee on the trek, including furniture maker Kate. Abby, Fran and 3 others stay behind in their temporary camp to keep the vital fire alight.
If you watch the show, what you'll find with the women is a lot of feminist notions of independence. You have to understand that the independence we experience in the West is a luxury. Being by yourself in a survival situation or in any dangerous situation is stupid. There is power in numbers. The more people you have, the more people you have to fight and solve problems. You also have to understand that literally no one in civilization can survive on their own. There may be a couple of outliers, but outside of them, no one is capable of surviving on their own without using tools or knowledge that other people have invented or discovered. True
Yeah, actually,
independence
I was
is a
gonna say
myth.
something, but
However, I do think it's funny when a feminist screams about how she is strong and independent while her ex-husband is paying her child support and alimony, or she's on welfare. In civilization, we rely heavily on the functioning interactions of people who have different useful skills. If those systems fail,
social
most
interactions
of us are
of
screwed.
people.
If that happens, people are going to find out just how dependent they are on everyone else. If you want to succeed, your goal in life is to team up with people who serve a role that is complementary to yours. That's what works.
People that serve
What
a
doesn't work
complementary
is trying to do
role.
everything by
PR.
yourself just so you can
This guy's voice is too easy to imitate and make fun of, but you know, it's just it is. If you put it on YouTube, someone will make fun, and that's not what I'm trying to do.
say you're independent. Independence or self-reliance is not about doing everything by yourself. A person who is independent is someone who pulls his own
I've got to check something out. Yeah, my video's working now.
weight instead of being dependent on the group to pull his weight for him. That is what we should be striving for. Getting back to the show, this is the point where things start to
There
go
he is.
downhill for the women. Remember how the guys found
for
a
the
beach in a
thumbnail.
few hours? Well, the women are on day 2, they
Sorry,
split
that was for
up,
the
they
thumbnail.
found a beach, but the search/expedition party gets lost on the way back.
I'm used to being in forests, and I'm not going to be really happy if people start telling me I'm going the wrong way. The most important
Well,
thing is that we
you're not used to this forest though. This is a new place for you. You haven't been here before. You can't get angry with someone that knows the place that they've just been there more than you.
go and we go in a straight line. Now, honestly, I have no idea if this is right, but we've made a plan, so we've got to stick to it.
This is actually the opposite direction. We're going back towards the beach.
Don't tell her. She knows the way around the woods.
The expedition party are deep in the jungle interior and have mistakenly headed north in the wrong direction from their temporary camp. Now completely
they're
lost,
turning in a
they're
circle.
doubling back on themselves.
Oh, that's what.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can.
Don't care.
Now all kinds of problems start occurring, the most obvious of which is that it's very hard for beginners to navigate a forest without walking in circles, and their forester was useless. Which means if they are lucky enough to find a beach, they have to navigate back to the camp and then navigate back to the beach. They just turned one trip into 3 trips, making their gamble 3 times as hard. Problem number 2, the team who is at camp basically can't do anything like work on a shelter, so their time is wasted. In nature, you do not have the luxury of wasting time. If you watch the show, you'll see that downtime is a very consistent problem on the women's team. But here is the biggest problem in this event. Each team got a doctor and some kind of medical assistant. Dr. Piers was the doctor for the men's team, and his assistant was Barney, who is a paramedic. On the women's team, we have Dr. Belinda and her assistant, Lauren, who is a nurse.
Finally,
the problem is that the team's only doctor and only nurse went to go find a beach, while back in camp, a team member, Fran, is dying.
What?
I'm coming! Call the medics! She's Fran! Fran's fainted!
Out at sea, my safety response team are assessing 24-year-old Fran. After 5 days without anywhere near enough water, Fran has succumbed to dehydration.
Now, I will give Fran credit because she did tell the medical team not to give her any extra nutrients so she wouldn't have an advantage over her other team members.
I wouldn't do that. It's like fainting. I'm give me everything. Give me everything you got. Give me your entire stock so I'm better.
Which is pretty brave, but I keep thinking, how could you be so disorganized that you wouldn't think to keep someone with medical experience in each group? I understand that they have a medical staff on call, but it still takes a while to get there, and if there is any intense emergency, then the person who gets hurt is basically dead. Certainly, if there was no on-call medical team, this would have been a very stupid move. So the medical team evaluates Fran, and it turns out that she got dehydrated. Dehydrated when earlier it was raining outside. Honestly, I know this is all...
So it was raining, and they didn't think to collect the water to drink.
hindsight and backseat driving, but I'm trying to be fair here. They had a massive water canister and a bunch of improvised bamboo cups. It's not too much of a stretch to put some of those cups outside and have them collect water for you. This is the first instance of several that the women get saved by the medical team. To which I will say, the men never had an injury so severe that they absolutely had to be saved by the medical staff. One got stung by a non-lethal scorpion. They called the medical team for it, but he would have been fine. The second was Will, who fell and ruptured a tendon in his arm. Will was evacuated from the island, so he wouldn't permanently damage his arm. Multiple times by the medical staff, which I will get to.
Don't want to look at that.
But let's continue with the story. The situation with Fran gets resolved, and the expedition party still has not gotten back after like 3 days.
Convinced they're close to camp, Georgie and Lauren go ahead to recce their surroundings.
We're just looking. We're back to where we are.
No f***ing way. Can't be.
We are.
The expedition party have spent all day in the searing heat, only to find they've walked in one big circle, back to Coconut Beach.
Oh, that's a pain.
So the camp party decides to go search.
Oh, you would be so pissed. I don't even know what I would say. I'll just sit and just sit.
The expedition party, and they
And
do the one extremely obvious
accept my
thing that the
fate.
expedition party could have done, which was follow the coastline.
The women at camp are finally taking their fate into their own hands.
They haven't found us, so we've got no alternative but to find them, because we've stayed and we waited. I don't even know, 2 days, 3 days to be rescued. Now we have to just go and blow our whistles madly to see if anyone's hearing us, and that's what we're going to do. That's the plan.
Unaware.
Smart. If you're ever lost and looking for someone, blow your whistle.
Of the expedition party's whereabouts.
He said blow their whistle.
The 5 women are searching the coastline.
After everyone got off the boat, they didn't actually make it that far into the forest.
Yeah, they did.
And yes, everyone knew that because of the first search party. All the women who got lost would have had to do was walk the coastline and blow their whistles, and they would have easily found the camp. And I say easily because the camp party was able to find the expedition party within a few hours of walking the coastline.
And it took them 2 days and they couldn't find out. It took the other group a couple of hours.
Even if they walked the wrong way, it probably wouldn't have taken more than a day. Just for comparison, I will point out that at the end of the show, 2 men, Kyle and Sam, got lost in the forest at night and were still able to make it back to camp in the same day.
So they did a 5-kilometer trip at night, a few hours, and it took the women 2 days, and they didn't even find the camp.
I will also...
Were they even trying? Like, the island, it probably is bigger than it looks in this picture, obviously, but at night, 5-kilometer, and they managed to get there the same day.
Also point out that the fire the women were trying to protect went out, making the whole reason they split up completely pointless. Eventually, they find a beach to camp.
That's not good. The one thing I've learned from Bear Grylls, I think, some survivor list, one of them. Keep a fire burning.
On after like a week.
Freeze or something.
Meanwhile, the men have their entire camp set up. However, credit where credit is due, the women did make a fire on the first day, and the men didn't make one until day 2.
So that's a point to women.
You've been working from home.
No! By the way, I'm watching it because it's not skipping. I'm not showing it. Indeed. That's the advert. GG's easy, let's go. Come on. We're back.
You're very nearly there.
Here we go! Oh my God! Wow! Again, just put me out! Oh my God!
I don't want to sound too cocky too early.
No, I don't think we should.
I don't think we should at all. No. But right now,
we're winning.
Although, once the men's fire is made, it never goes out. The entire 6 weeks. The women's fire, however, goes out multiple times and they could not restart it. This leads us to the second time the women had to get saved.
Never celebrate too early. That is a reason why you never celebrate too early. On the first day, after just lighting the fire, with no idea how the other men are doing, you're winning.
The women have now been without water for more than 48 hours, and they are dangerously dehydrated. Their situation is now beyond critical.
Medical advice is that the castaways are now so critically dehydrated.
I know what I need to do. Hang on. I'm going to get a drink. So, oh, why am I so small? Put stuff in this corner. That'll do. So, I'm gonna go get a drink and I'll come back soon. So, I'm back. Let's get back.
that within a few hours, their lives will genuinely be in danger. So really, I've got no choice but to intervene. And the women will be given a working bow drill set.
So we have women cheering about how they are doing better than the men by making their first fire so quickly, but shortly thereafter, in the first week, one of their team members, Fran, would have died without medical assistance, and by week 2, their whole team would have died of dehydration because they didn't have a fire. For reference, you can survive about 3 days without water, but keep in mind that they are on a tropical island that is commonly over 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Dehydration is a reoccurring problem for the women. Now, I haven't mentioned this, but anyone is allowed to leave the island anytime they want. At this point, 3 out of the 14 men have left voluntarily, and 2 out of the 14 women are gone. 1 voluntarily, and Fran from earlier was evacuated because of medical issues. Both teams ended up losing 4 people by the end of 6 weeks, so they were even on that. That being said, let's move on to the next issue. There are multiple cases in the show where things are just given to the women, and the women take no initiative to grab it. This brings us to nature's biggest handout in the show, which are 2 piglets that just walk onto the women's beach camp.
There's a pig, there.
Hello.
They're not.
All they've eaten in a week are a few handfuls of yucca and coconut.
We've got 2 of the cutest little piglets here.
Their little tails wag like.
Don't name them. Don't name them. Could you please say you could hear me, because I don't want to shoot. Don't name. Okay, you can. Just don't name the pigs. Just
Dogs
eat
are
them.
so cute.
Everything that moves on the island really should be seen as a potential source of food, and
Yes,
that
sir.
includes the pigs.
Oh, you're so cute. Come here, Sage. Come here.
Keep in mind,
Name them. Sage and onion. Just never name something you're gonna kill. Unless you work in a farm, then you can, because you're there for most of their life.
that these women have
Not all of
basically
their
had
life.
no food for over a week, and they are in a situation where they could die of starvation. It's not just that, but also the fact that you get weak when you don't eat after a few days, which makes every activity more and more dangerous. With that said, instead of turning those pigs into food, they befriend them. They sleep with the pigs, they feed the pigs, they comb the pigs' hair.
Why? Wasting food on pigs. I guess if you're fattening them up, that's a good thing. You eat more, but don't get attached. They're food. They're not friends. They're food.
They turn them into pets and name them Sage and Onion. They pretty much do everything with the pigs except eat them. Then, even worse, they determine that the beach that they were on wasn't that great, so they move to another beach and they leave the pigs at the old beach.
Bye, Sage. Bye, Onion. Look at us. We look like survivors.
What was wrong with that beach? Let's go back. That beach. There's a few rocks, but it doesn't take much effort to pick the rocks and put them in the woods, forest.
To another beach and they leave.
Look at us.
When he put the clip of them leaving the pigs, followed by one of them saying, "We look like survivors." It wasn't me who did that. I just trimmed out a few seconds. But wait, there's more. They leave the pigs on the old beach, the pigs follow them to the new camp, and they still don't eat the pigs. This whole situation.
Nature's like, here's food. I'm giving you food. Take it. Eat it. And they're like, pet. My little petty.
And reminded me of when I did that video on Naked and Afraid about Cassie and Forrest. I only covered that one episode of the show, but I watched 2 seasons of it to know what a typical episode looks like. A very common problem on that show was that the women would refuse to kill animals to eat, even if they weren't vegetarian. Keep in mind that if you go on Naked and Afraid, you're supposed to be a survival expert.
Why go on a survival show? if you're not going to kill for food? What's the point of going on the survival show if you're not going to kill for food?
Well, at least in the first 2 seasons, they were supposed to be. So even the trained women will commonly refuse to do the work to provide the food they have no problem with buying at the store in a fancy package.
Yeah. Like, don't. I can't think of a reason not to kill the pigs. As soon as as soon as I saw the pigs, I thought, kill them. Don't name them. Kill them. The food.
The women on the island were the same way.
The fate of Sage and Onion hangs in the balance. The women have befriended them and now can't agree whether or not to eat them.
I am hungry. I don't think I could look.
At least they even named them food-wise, so they get more hungry. Thinking about Sage and Onion.
Into his little piggy eyes and then kill him.
At
Cover his eyes with a leaf.
this point in the show, the men had to run out and go find their food. They were able to successfully capture a crocodile.
That's a lovely place. I would just spend one day there, please. Thank you. Much appreciated.
While the women had food just walk up to them, and they were unwilling to do what it takes to survive. And I think this brings up an interesting point that holds a lot of people back. This happens everywhere, but I see it on YouTube all the time, so that's the example I'm going to go with.
What's YouTube?
YouTubers will say things like, I don't want to create interesting titles, that's clickbait. Look, that's fine, but have fun getting like 1/10 of the viewers because your title isn't good. And I literally mean that a bad title will harm you that much.
Oh, at least put some. Oh, there's one different. There's one different thumbnail in the. There's probably more actually. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 18 thumbnails. 17 of the 18 are the same.
Much. Not to mention, there are plenty of ways to make good titles without lying to your viewers.
Yeah.
But that's a skill that you have to practice, not putting the work in to learn how to.
What do you think of my title? Have a look. Have a look at the thumbnail as well. Don't judge too hard, alright? I'm trying.
To attract an audience says to me that you don't want to put the time in or make the sacrifices it takes to be successful. If you are going to survive on an island where there aren't enough plants to sustain you, then you need to hunt or you will die. None of the women were willing to kill except for Lauren the nurse.
Why didn't they go fishing? Like, spearfishing? They probably did. I mean, he's about
Everyone
to say
but
it.
Lauren and Jamie, who was a vegetarian and only ate plants, should be ashamed of themselves for eating meat without being willing to do the dirty work themselves.
Yeah.
So Lauren does eventually kill the 2 piglets, and the women finally get to eat. Except for...
Don't tell them it's the pigs. just that I'm going to take the pigs for a walk in this woods. Oh no, the pigs went missing. I don't know where they've gone. Anyway, found this food in the woods. Quite nice. I think Bear dropped it for us. Lovely
Jamie,
guy.
the vegetarian. Now, there are some questions that people had about the show that I certainly have as well. For example, how exactly do 2 domesticated pigs just suddenly walk up onto the women?
Yeah, the staff has got to, like, they need food. How long is it? That long? That long? They got water. They don't. Got coconuts. Give them piglets.
Women's camp without a care in
Give
the
'em
world
piglets.
when the women were starving. Also curious, there were 2 piglets from an earlier scene the women found by chance, but ignored because their mom was around and they were afraid of being attacked.
So there was a bigger pig as well. There was a bigger pig on the island, and they could have ate it. They didn't.
However, just a few minutes later into the episode, 2 very similar looking piglets show up without a mom to protect them. That's very questionable, but I don't have any...
Bear's just dropped from the woods like Mission Impossible on a wire from a helicopter, picked up the mum pig, and flew off.
Evidence to say that the producers released those pigs to help out the women. However, Bear Grylls admitted that the show stocked the island with different animals, so everything there wasn't entirely native. But then, people also found it strange that this fully grown pig was just laying out there in the open, not caught in a trap, perfectly fine with a bunch of people walking.
Maybe they didn't set traps. Otherwise, that would be, cheat. Did women set? I can't. You probably watched and
Up
they
to it.
probably did.
There.
What?
See it?
The bucket. Oh. Oh, it's a
A
dead
hunting
pig.
party led by Lauren has stumbled across a sleeping pig in the middle of the
Yes,
jungle.
that's not a sleeping pig. That's a dead pig. That's a dead pig. There's flies on it. Oh, it was asleep.
People were saying that the pig was drugged, and that's why the women were able to catch it. But I have a different explanation for why it put up so little resistance.
Oh, you can
Later,
sleep,
the women found out that the pig was full of ticks. The pig
Ooh.
was probably half dead when they tried to capture
Ooh.
it, which is why it didn't make much of an effort to run away. So I will give the women credit for catching that one. However, this leads us to our third crisis.
That was smart of putting a rope around its neck and then sitting on it.
Outside of their camp now being infested with ticks.
Ooh,
For some reason, the women decide to preserve the pig leftovers in one of their water canisters and bury it underground. This didn't work, and all the women
Why bury it?
got sick the next day from eating
Did they try and cook it in the water tank?
rotten meat, except for Jamie, the vegetarian. It's at this point they make their most disastrous screw-up that would have killed everyone if the emergency medical team didn't help them. The women took the water canister, which was full of rotten pig, and instead of trying to sanitize
Did they put water in
they
it?
threw it away.
With the preserved pork no longer edible, the
I thought what I said was bad, like putting water in it for drinking, but throwing it away instead of washing it.
women removed the pig's remains and jerrycan of putrid meat from the camp. Unconvinced they could salvage a rancid jerrycan and use it to purify the water again, the women throw it away. Now with only one jerrycan
Look, littering. No, pick it up.
and to produce all their water, the women are unknowingly heading towards a dehydration crisis.
What were they thinking? This messed up their entire filtration system and cut the amount of water they could produce in half. The women used one canister to filter the water and one canister to boil it. By the way, speaking of the men, they had a far more sophisticated water filtration system than the women did that resulted in cleaner water, and the men...
Oh, they're drinking piss. They listen to Bear Grylls too much. I was joking about drinking your own piss. Hi. Sorry about this hard cut. Basically, after this clip that you just watched, there was an ad, and I kind of got shut off the audio, just me for a bit, and then kind of forgot to turn back on the audio. So the second half, it's just silence, just me watching, and then sometimes making a comment. But you don't know what I'm commenting on because it didn't really say anything. So sorry. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and put in the comments any video you want me to react. Obviously, there's limitations. If it gets me demonetized, I will not watch. So, thanks for watching. I've been Slippery Waffles. So I don't know why I paused. I've been Slippery Waffles. Thank you very much.